Did you have a toxic person give you the silent treatment? Like go completely silent. Now, most people, when they think about this, they're like, oh yeah, he was texting me and then he stopped texting me. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about you're cohabiting, you're living together, you're married, whatever it might be, and he gives you the silent treatment. Now, for some of you, you might be like, that's crazy. Who would actually do that? For some of you, you're like, oh, I resonate with that because that's what he did to me. And I need you to understand a couple things that we're going to walk through today of why he's doing it and what's the end goal. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Why is he actually even doing this to you? We're going to kind of break it down a little bit. But for those of you who don't know, like silent treatment, when we're talking about this inside the relationship, oftentimes it's when you're in the same house, work environment, you're interacting, and then all of a sudden, one day you're not. He goes completely silent. You try to talk to him, you don't really get a response. You try to say something, no answer. You try to interact with him, like, seems like you're not even there. And oftentimes there's this piece where you start to feel like completely invalidated because it doesn't even recognize, doesn't even acknowledge your presence. Every day he comes home, comes in, does what he wants to do, does what he needs to do, might even sit down and eat with you in silence, and then continues and goes and does what he has to do. And so you're going to see this more and more in the relationship when you're dealing with a covert and a passive-aggressive narcissist. You're going to see the silent treatment. And the silent treatment is created for a specific reason, 9 times out of 10. The silent treatment is typically made as a way to demonstrate their frustration with you and to bring you to a state of you knowing and understanding that you have to pay. Now, what do I mean by that? When you're with a toxic person, it's their road or no road. Like it's the high road or the no road, but like that messes it up. So we just won't do it. Okay, it's the narcissist way or it's no way. Okay, your opinions don't matter, your beliefs don't matter, your thoughts don't matter, your feelings don't matter. We can go down the list because you don't matter to the narcissist. Okay, that's the piece you need to understand. He doesn't care about you, you don't matter. What matters is what he wants, his image, his money, all those things. That's what matters to him. That's the only thing that even matters. The mask that he's portraying to other people. And so what's happening is oftentimes you're in this relationship going back and forth and you start to realize that you don't even matter, that he doesn't care about you. But over a period of time, he starts to slip this in by using the silent treatment. Now, the silent treatment is typically scripted out, like I mentioned, to have you pay something towards him. So you went out with your friends, the next day, maybe he's going to give you a silent treatment. Why? Because you, quote unquote, rejected him by going out with your friends instead of hanging out with him. You abandon him by walking away to your friends, and he's more important than your friends, so how dare you? This is how a narcissist slowly isolates you from your friends and family, because you're like, well, if that's how he's going to act when I'm out with my friends, maybe I just won't go out with my friends. That way I don't have to deal with that emotional turmoil at home when I get back. The thing you need to realize is oftentimes a narcissist, especially a covert narcissist, will be raging mad, and you'll feel it. You'll be able to sense it. It'll be like this energy coming out of him. Like you'll know something's wrong, but he won't tell you. He won't interact with you. He won't share his feelings. Like he won't open up. If anything, the relationship only got like an inch deep. You didn't really get into a real depth of who he is, what's going on, emotions, feelings, triggers. All those things didn't really happen. And so a narcissist a lot of times is trying to be able to use the silent treatment to make you pay. To make you pay for something that you did and also to train you. Now, what do I mean by that? Narcissists a lot of times are going to treat you like an animal. An animal meaning they don't care about you and they're only focused on what they want. And if they keep doing certain things, you will actually be trained to respond, to react in the way that they see fit. So you go out with your friends and family. He gives you the silent treatment. You're like, subconsciously, maybe I shouldn't do that. If I do that, then he does this. Okay? 1 + 1 = 2. So he's trying to train you. When this happens, I do this. When you do this, I give silent treatment. When you do this, I give silent treatment. And slowly over time, you start to get conditioned and you start to get reprogrammed and you start to get trained of what you can and can't do. This is how narcissists slowly and subtly manipulate your emotions, your feelings, your desires, your dreams, your destiny, all of these different things, because they're trying to be able to see, how do I actually make sure that you do what I want you to do? Now, for a narcissist, it might be keeping you in the relationship. It might be isolating you from friends, from family, from people that are going to speak the truth into your life so that he has the sole outlook, sole information on you. You're going to see this because the narcissist wants to be in control of all things. But most importantly, in control of his mask, in control of his image, in control of how he's coming across. So with the silent treatment, he's trying to make you pay. He's trying to train you. The other thing is he's trying to get you to apologize. This is where it gets kind of interesting because you're like, what do I need to apologize for? Exactly. There's nothing you need to apologize for, but the narcissist is trying to guide you along this road of, hey, I need you to apologize to a situation that I created. Okay? Hopefully this makes sense. Let's see if we can draw this out so it makes sense as well. All right, so let's say you've got the toxic person, and he's created this like shitstorm. Okay? So we'll do this. We'll do like a little tornado here. Okay? He's created this like mess of like what's going on. Okay? And he's then said, let me give you the silent treatment, and you have to figure out what this is. So you're sitting over here and you're like, I wonder why he's giving me the silent treatment. There's all of this kind of like shit that's going on in between us, but there's also the silent treatment. So it doesn't really make sense. Like, what could he be illustrating? What could he be doing? And you start to rack your brain with the simple, biggest question, which is, what did I do wrong? Now, you might have this piece of like, hey, you asked him, gave you the silent treatment. You asked him, he didn't answer. You asked him, he was like, well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you, right? People normally put that like on the woman of like using that phrase, like, no, wake up, 21st century. But also it's on the narcissist. Like he'll say stuff like that. Of like, I'm not going to tell you, like, you should know. You're the one that did it. You're the one that hurt me. Okay, you use words to try to manipulate. But you're going to question this and you're going to feel crazy. Okay, it's natural, it's normal because you're in an abusive environment. But you're going to feel crazy because you're like, I don't know what I did wrong. And you spend tons of time trying to rack your brain, trying to think about it, trying to work through it, being like, I don't know what I did. I don't know what I did. At the end of the day, you didn't do anything. Okay, but what happened was he created this. Okay, he created, here's the tornado in between the two of y'all. He created this to make you question it. And then the whole idea is to make you think that this tornado is actually your fault. It must be, right? Because otherwise he'd be talking to you. Otherwise he'd be interacting with you. So then his goal is, if it's your fault, then that means you have to apologize. You have to make it right. You're the one that needs to ask for his forgiveness. So he's looking for you to be able to move past this piece of like, what did I do wrong? And just accept it. He's like, okay, I'll accept the blame. And typically you're going to accept the blame and you're going to come back to the narcissist and you're going to apologize. Now, the wild thing with this is half the time when you try to apologize, you have no clue what you're apologizing for. Like, how many of you did this where you're like, oh, yeah, I came back and I talked to him and I didn't know what I was apologizing for. It's just, if I apologize, then the tornado goes away. Like, if I apologize, then he'll actually talk to me. It's an interesting dynamic, but the narcissist is like, how do I make my shit happen and you get blamed for my shit and you have to come back and apologize to me for the stuff that I created? You see that? So narcissist is going to do this a lot of times to manipulate you. Now, another piece comes out of this. Narcissist has this piece where he's made this tornado. Okay? And he's made this, and you've got to the place where you're like, I'm not going to apologize because I know that I didn't do anything wrong. So you're like, hey, no apology is happening because I am not accepting the blame. I know better. I know who I am. I know my worth. Then we've got an interesting piece because then it's easy for you to get frustrated. Why? Because he's putting all this stuff on you when it's not your fault. It's not your blame. And so as a result, it becomes something that becomes a triggering moment when he's giving you the silent treatment. Because he's done this over and over and over again. You know that you're justified. You know that you're right. You know that you didn't do anything wrong. And this is where the narcissist is trying to get you to spiral out. Ironic. We got a tornado on the screen. Okay? Spiral out. In this aspect, he's trying to get you to spiral out because he's trying to get you to engage in something that we call reactive abuse. Now, here's the interesting thing. Okay? People always focus on the reactive abuse. Let me write it down here so you can see it. People always focus on the reactive abuse. And what they focus on is they focus on the reaction. If we can write, then we'll be good. Okay? They focus on, here we go, the reaction. Now, the thing that's interesting is typically people focus on the reaction without ever taking into account the action that actually happened to set it off. And so you have this time where you're like screaming at him. You have this time where you're like holding him and like shaking him. And you're like, why won't you talk to me? Because it's been 3 weeks of him interacting with you with no words. Like he hasn't talked to you. And all of a sudden you just snap. You just lose it because this person is back to you in the corner and you feel completely crazy. So you're shaking him and you're like, why won't you even talk to me? What he just did is he produced an action, not communicating with you, creating a shitstorm so you're confused to get a reaction so that you would look like the crazy person. Then he films that. Then he uses that in his smear campaign. Then he uses that to set up the next supply of like, look what just happened to me. And the next supply is like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. Everything stacks up for what he's trying to do next. This is why reactive abuse is so critical that you understand it and that you fight it because you don't want to react a certain way that's only going to make it worse. That doesn't mean you're not justified at getting pissed off and shaking him because he's been silent for 3 weeks. I'm not putting that down, okay? Because that's ridiculous. And he's a coward and he's not actually willing to stand up and actually communicate like real men should do. But what you see here is a lot of times narcissists will try to manipulate the things that are going on to put stuff in a better light for themselves. If you resonate with this video at all, like leave a comment down below. Let people know. And if you're ready to start dealing with that tornado, the shitstorm that's in your life, and to actually break free from this insanity cycle that's happening in your life, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough today.